Hello, this is Alejandro Bratti from Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business. We are here with CJ and Shanei. We are your host today, and we are going to be having Patricia Boulogne. I hope that I am saying that your name well.
Are you asking me?
Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Cinco TV channel 250. Please remember to download both the Cinco TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Cinco TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, also on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. So this is amazing, really, to have everybody together again. Thank you for being with us. And you know that the idea of this program is to bring awareness on people, business owners, people that is going through their lives. So we have an special guest, and I am really happy to have you here with us, Dr. Pat. I know that. You are amazing. You have been doing a lot of things. And as you were telling us before, you have been a doctor since 4 years old. So that's a long time. I love it.
Yeah.
I What I want to start today is with who was Dr. Pat when you were young, or the time that you want to tell us here today. Just to start to create this, no, okay, Dr. Pal was this person. Suddenly these things started to happen, and you started to create this belief in yourself, like, and that's why you are who you are right now.
Well, I was the last out of five kids. And so that was, when I was born, I didn't have, my mother had so much other stuff going on that my older sister basically raised me.
Mm.
And I learned to be very self-sufficient from when I came out the chute, because I learned that in order for me to if I wanted something, I had to go get it. And a lot of times, and my sister always, I was her favorite, and I always called her my bebop. It was like this, like, love affair between my sister and when we slept, because we had, a small house, we all shared beds with each other. So you learn how to sleep. I was so happy the day that they all moved out. And my last sister finally got married, because I had a bedroom totally to myself. And so that was really great. But when I was 4 years old, I did something, because I learned at a very young age that, I could go out and I could do things on my own. I would ask and then nobody would answer me. So I just went and did them. And I started being a nonconformist at a very, very young age. So when I started playing doctor with, my friends and everything else like that, lived in the neighborhood, I was the only girl in about a 6 block radius. So I grew up a tomboy. I didn't know what it was like to play with the Barbie. I had one, I just never used it. I just had it on my bed. So, I started being, when we played doctor, because everyone plays doctor. It's like, I had my own stethoscope when I was like 4 years old till I was 7. And then all my playmates that were there also, nobody ever wanted to be the doctor. So I just became the doctor. And I always say that nobody ever died. I didn't die. And I never played the nurse and I never played the patient, but nobody ever died under my watch in my whole history of being a doctor. So I guess that's a very, very positive thing. But I learned to like take an experiment. Science for me was always really easy. My father had a master's in electrical engineering, and he had a very high position in a company that was there called Allied Chemicals at the time. And so I would call him up when I was doing science projects and say, I need phenolphthalein. And so he was a 9-year-old kid calling him up saying, he goes, what do you use phenolphthalein for? I said, phenolphthalein is an acid-base indicator. And I'm doing a science project and I need some because my chemistry kit doesn't have it. And so he would bring me home some phenolphthalein and he helped me do my science project. And that science project went to the state. My teacher was so impressed with my plastic pickle jars that he sent the project to the state, and I came in second in the state for that year for a science project for a 9-year-old kid in that
Wow.
category. So I was always like, science for me was always easy. And so when I went to, high school and went to college, I started just taking biochemistry, I'd say biochemistry, but like my biology classes, and I didn't start doing pre-med stuff until after I decided to really go and explore that. So in that transition, I ended up working at the University of Michigan Hospital as a patient relations advocate. I worked as a candy striper when I was in high school, going in and delivering, taking pregnant women going down in the maternity ward back and forth in their wheelchairs, and doing fun things and helping people being in a difficult situation and being happier about it. So even in college, when I did my independent study, I did that also at the University of Michigan Hospital. And then I finished that. And what I saw there was really disconcerting to me, because I looked at that and said, like, wow, people are not getting better here. And at that point in time, they didn't make it look like a spa. So it was like puke green, walls, that was the color of it. It wasn't very inviting, and you felt very icky when you walk in the front door. But my job is to say, hey, Alexandro, you just got here. Do you know if you're missing anything? Did you forget a toothbrush, toothpaste? Do you need me to make a phone call for you? What do you need? And just and so I would go do that. I had a checklist. Sometimes I would see 150 patients a day. How could they possibly have admitted 150 people in a hospital in one day? It was always mind-boggling to me. And then I worked on the cancer ward. And in the cancer ward, I ran into a guy walking down the hallway one day shuffling. And I said, I don't think I know you. And he goes, you're never going to remember me anyway. And I said, why is that? He goes, because I'm going to die. They told me I'm going to die. I only have 6 weeks to live. So I, being who I was, I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, what do you mean? And I said, well, if someone told me I was going to die, the last place I'd be is in a hospital. I'd go out and do whatever it is that I ever wanted to do in my life, never had an opportunity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have that level of diagnosis, then you need to be able to be able to go do something that you want to do. Screw them, And so, but at the end of the day, what happened is that when I was walking by my bosses, the woman who was monitoring me, she just said, Pat, come on in here. And I said to her, like, hey, she goes, so who's the guy you're talking to in the cancer ward? And I said, I talked to a couple people there. Is it something specific? And then I had this feeling who she was talking about. And she's telling about this guy. She goes, he left the hospital. He's really sick. I said, wow, good for him. And she looked at me. She said, he needs his med. Well, then give him his meds and let him go. He's got 6 weeks to live, he told me. Well, who wants to die in a hospital that the walls are puke green? And I said, and I go, it's and just, go and do whatever it is that you love to do, because you should already have been doing that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when I decided I did not want to be a medical doctor. Mm-hmm. And that's when I signed up to go to chiropractic school. And in short, I went to chiropractic school maybe a year after that, something like that. I worked to get some money together. And plus I wanted to go to Europe for like 3 months before I went and gave the rest of my life away. And so that's what I did. I just organized that so that would happen. And it was the best decision I ever made. I mean, first off, it got me away from that block that your family always has you in, like when you go home, nobody can press your buttons as well as your family can. And they can do it like in a nanosecond, it's just or it's just a look, or it's a, kind of thing. And so I learned when I was at a chiropractic school how to block that. I just put my hand up and said, thanks for sharing that with me. And, and they're like, there wasn't a reaction anymore, which really upset them. And, so I learned to do other tools, so I could take those tools and I could help other people have breakthroughs in their life that are so important to have, so they can live the life that they were born to live, and that the life that they deserved. So that, as whether it be, for health, whether it be their life, whether it be for mindset, because you got to have mindset for everything. We all can agree. I've never had anybody in 38 years ever disagree with me that you need your health for everything. And so it's like, and if you have your mindset, you can surpass goals any place that you want to. So when I was going to go to chiropractic school and I told my father I was going to go do that, his first line was, "Oh, they're quacks." And I said, "Well, Dad, you have a very high degree." And I said, "You would know better than anything that chiropractors don't quack, ducks do." And so it just like he just kind of just shut up a little bit. And, and then he just said, "Well, I'm not going to pay for it." I said, "I don't care. I'm still going." And I got a loan, and, and I parlayed like what I did, how I lived, so I could get the education that I needed. So I could go out and help sick people get well people to maintain their wellness, and people who needed to just tweak their already goodness, that all that stuff, to have it happen. And then I got really interested in nutrition and the delivery of nutrition. Like, way back when they made margarine, they knew they were killing you. They knew that margarine had a double bond in it that was not breakable down. It also was carcinogenic. And as it became known to be carcinogenic, they still haven't taken it off the market, because you can still buy margarine in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Nobody should ever put margarine on anything, except maybe a screw that needs to be lubricated. But the it's just like, and an understanding about foods, like, it's just like, why do you eat whole foods? I was taught by my nutrition teacher when I was in chiropractic school, to eat whole foods back in 1982. Nobody was talking about it. You had health food stores for sure, but nobody was talking about why. He told me why. When he told me why, I never went to eating anything that I thought was like, was bad for you, like things that are GMO. It's just like, you don't want to eat those things, and why? It's because it's like dating. You have a good date and a bad date. The good date is the organic, it's the whole food. It's the guy who wants to make sure that you're taken care of, water, walk, and feed you, wants to make sure your kids are taken care of, wants to make sure you sleep well, think well, move well, and feel well. The GMO broccoli, for the analogy, is the guy who wants to take you out and party till 2 o'clock in the morning, gets to sleep in while you have to go to work. That it's just like, it's a really debate. Like, it's an easy decision when you think about broccoli. The next time you go, anybody who's listening to this, go grocery shopping next time and look at broccoli, they're going to remember the story. It's outdated. And I actually did that in a grocery store one time. And this woman said, "Which one of those is organic?" And I had it in my right hand. I said, "This one is." And she goes, "Great, go get your own." And she grabbed it out of my hand and walked away. It was really funny. And so, but I love to see people thrive. And to have, but you first got to like check in, where's that mindset come from? And if there's a glitch in the mindset, you got to go, where does that happen at? Where did that first glitch happen at that sets you so that you're not, like, instead of running 10 miles, you're running 9 miles. And you're going, why can't I ever make it through the past 10 miles? Because someone told you couldn't do it and you believe them. And so my job first is to take that mindset and unwind it, and reset it, and then look at, what are your goals? What are your goals for work? Because I can help people be more productive. I can help them think better. I can help them be stronger. I can send them in the right direction so that they can get the exercise that they need for their body type, as opposed to, it's just like guessing. I don't like to guess, because then you're not testing. And when you have a pure test where you know where to start your health journey, it's a lot easier knowing where your weakest link is before it becomes a crisis than it is waiting till it becomes a crisis, because then you're scrambling. And when you're scrambling, you're in chaos. And we've seen in the last 2 years, especially with COVID and cytokine storms, is that there's a lot of sick people who don't know it. So somebody asked me the other day, because I started having a cold, they go, it's just like, "Oh, you've got COVID." I said, "No, COVID was 2020, and then they had a variant, which really should be called a strain. And because they called flu strains for years and years and years, every time a new one came around. So then we have another strain called Omicron, and Omicron is the new strain. So the thing is that, when we have those, how viruses always evolve. They always have, and they always will. And coronavirus, if you got a cold, you're going to test positive for coronavirus, because the cold is coronavirus. So there's just like, putting some common sense and some logic back in to moving forward. But somebody asked me if I was actually If I was actually to go, you're fighting a disease because you've got a cold. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm expressing health. Because if I was not expressing health, I would have a cytokine storm and I would die more than likely.
Mm.
So having a cold and sneezing and things like that, my body's going, yep, you're not supposed to have that in you, right? So and in having that, information is really important because it puts common sense and it puts the ball back in your pocket and you're the driver's seat. So when you have that cart before the horse, it doesn't have to exist anymore like that. There's no magic pill. You got to get the horse in front of the cart, attach the horse. You got to get it in the driver's seat, and you have to have a driver's license that's usable to be able to drive that cart and to be keep moving forward. Because you do not want to go sideways, you want to go forward, and you don't want to go backwards. The only reason why you would ever look backwards is to find out what your bottom baseline is. And it's different for every person. So you've got to know what that is. So in my book that I talk about the weakest link, the book like Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired, that tells you where your weakest link is, and it tells you where to pay attention to it. And if you have confusion about that, I have a link at the end of the book so you can actually talk with me personally for a half hour, and I can help you sort out what your next best step is, whether you work with me or not. Because my goal isn't about me. My goal is about getting people in the right place at the right time with the right people so that they can have the best life possible, have the right mindset to get past any dilemma that they have, and also, have the best health. Because when you have your health, you have everything, right?
Yeah.
So just to slow you down a little bit because this was really really good. Uh, when you start to think, okay, you have been like giving amazing stories with all the believe in yourself. So and I really don't you agree that part of your life when you started to have okay I have four siblings that are like pushing me all the time that help you to started to create this even belief in yourself like no I can do it even if they are not taking care of me and you can be in the hospital telling everybody you have to live your life. So how was that process and how is that process right now in the belief
I
that you
haven't.
have to be like yourself all the time and really being like pushing people to live at their fullest, you know?
Well, even from when I was a child and I went to kindergarten, it's like at 5 years old, the boy that lived across the street told my teacher that he was going to marry me, and they separated us because they thought we were really quite precocious, and we never married. OBGYN doctor, and I married a doctor. So when I was married, but how that always played out was like it never was any different, because I was brought up. I grew up very independent and very independent thinking. I even thought at one point in time as a kid that I could train bumblebees. And I
Mm.
would go out and catch them and put them in jars and put holes in them. And then I'd roll them back and forth. And my father would come out and say to me, "What are you doing?" "I'm training bees." And he's like thinking I'm crazy. And and so he goes, "Whatever you do when you open the top of the lid of the bee after you train him, make sure it's pointing away from you." you know, He said, and I went like, "Why is that?" He goes, "Well, they have a tendency to sting, and you don't want to be stung, right?" I said, "No." He goes, "Then you need to open it up away from you, and then walk the other way." So but I've always been independent like that. I've never not been like that I can remember. And very strong-willed. I can do it. When the first time I went to go to Europe, I mentioned that my, father met me at the airport, to say goodbye and the big family, have fun. And took me aside. He said, "If you don't want to go," and he said, "You don't have to go. You can not go." Because I was supposed to go with three other girls. And that never happened because they had something come up and they had a big excuse. Their excuse was bigger than they were. So they ended up not going. And I said, "Why would I not go?" I mean, it never occurred to me not to go. And so, I had my ticket. I was going. I'd never been there before. And I figured I could figure it out after I got there, even if I couldn't. There weren't bilateral languages there, except for in Brittany, where it was Celtic, and I also was in French. But but look, yeah, my first train station, when I got out, I thought to myself, oh no. I sat on my luggage for a half hour just sorting out, like, what is it that I have to do? So then I said, well, I've got to ask somebody how to get to, because I landed in Brussels. I have to get to Amsterdam. So I need to find somebody. How do I get to Amsterdam? I have a pass. And they walked me over. They were so nice. They walked me over and I got my pass validated. And then they got me on the train because they were going on the same train. Then they taught me how to read the train schedule. And it was just from asking one question.
Wow.
And like, I needed help. So, and people are so scared to ask for help, and it's like the hardest thing for people to do. But once they do it, it's so freedom ringing in their rest of their lives. It's just like women ask for help all the time. We don't think about it. Guys have a harder time to ask for help. Especially like for directions. We always hear stories about women and men and the direction thing. And they're going, I just know it's around here somewhere. 2 hours later, you're still going around the same, like it's around the Arc de Triomphe or something. It's stuck in traffic. Anyway, but I've always been like that. I've always, if I always thought I'll jump in the fire and then I'll figure out how to get out. And that's all. I don't know. It's just how I grew up. It worked for me. And I always, like landed on my feet. It was pretty hot sometimes in the center of that fire, but I found out the best way to get to the outside of it. And like, what a learning experience. And when bad things happened or when things happened that didn't, that weren't perfect, I would always ask myself, even at a young age, what did I learn from this? And what do I want to do again? So that's just, and I do that now. It's just like, I can't tell you how many like micro failures I had in the last 10 years from starting something because I'm thinking, oh, I need to go this way. And I'm pushing against the universe, and the universe is going, I don't think so. I think you need to be over here, so it's very a very thoughtful process for people to do. Is when things don't work out, it's like, well, what did I learn? And what could I do better? And if I needed to ask somebody, maybe I could ask somebody who might know somebody who could tell me how to do this better yet, like how to make that work so that, to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So that's why I like to solve problems. That's why I like to help people with their health, is because I can see the big picture and I can say, your best bet, if you want to get here, then I can tell you what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like where to go, like do this. Or if I'm not the person for you, I can tell you exactly who to go see, or what kind of doctor you should look for and what kind of advocating questions you should ask, that type of thing.
Awesome.
So, Dr. Pat, with you retraining people's brains in order to believe in themselves and get to a better place in their lives, how do you help people to think with confidence and actually believe in themselves and their dreams to live the life that they were born to live?
Well, it's a great question. And I love that question because I love talking about this particular topic. First off, I'm from the Midwest and we like to talk anyway. So I'm Gabby. But to that particular question, you got to take a look at the 3 brains. There's 3 brains and one is the primitive brain, and that's the guy who like helps you not run into the car in front of you and slam on the brakes. When the saber-toothed tiger comes out in front of you, you're going, oh my God, I got to go the other way, And then you have the mammalian brain, which is the brain that ties emotions in with events. So when you have that, it's like, if you ever saw the movie Love Actually, it starts out with all these people walking out of the checkpoint and meeting these people, and everyone's smiling, they're crying, they're hugging each other. And it ties in this wonderful emotion of love to meeting people that like and trust. And that sets the tone for the rest of the thing. So every time you see people, like the next, like 10 times I went through a checkpoint, I was waiting for all those people to be there, because it sets the tone for it. So if you have that, and if you date somebody who has that same kind of, sets that nice tone, like the good broccoli, the organic broccoli story, then every time you look at broccoli, you're going to have a good feeling about it. So if you tie in bad events to those kind of feelings in the mammalian brain, then every time you see that, one thing or whatever it is, then you're going to have that reaction that can set up a time and space continuum that you can get sick from, because thoughts are powerful and they control they have a tendency to control your emotions. So you got to have those under control. That's why the mammalian brain is important. And then you have the conscious brain. Oh, the mammalian brain happens all by itself. It's like the primitive brain. So then you have on the thinking brain, or the conscious brain, is that when you're up, like right now, I'm in conscious mode. So I know that if I say affirmations, and if I want to change the mammalian's message to the primitive brain, so the primitive brain can't win, then I'm going to say, like, I am healthy, I am happy, I am vital, I am an active, successful human being. God gives me the air that I breathe, the water I drink, to repair and revitalize me for the future. Radiant energy flows through me as I render loving, tender care and guidance to my clients. It's just like, that's powerful. And I can say that in the morning and I can say that at night, because the primitive brain, who wants to say, no, you can't, that's for somebody else, that's not for you, that's shut off. So the best time to do affirmations, it's always in present time and present purpose. It's like, I help people make those affirmations, know when to say them, and make them so that they work for them. Because that one that I said is mine. And so if you can change that and then change behaviors, like, well, where does that happen? Because I had a woman one time that as a client, who I said to her, she was, wanted to kill her husband. and what I said to her was, I go, and she goes, and she wrote him a letter. And I said, he'll never read it. It's 5 pages long. He'll never read it. I said, how about, I said, if we learn how to reframe that, so we talk to him, like when he's upset, how old does he act? And she said, 10. And I said, then write to him and talk to him as if he's 10 years old, and say something that you really like about him, for instance, like 1 sentence, 2 sentences, if you're insisting on writing the letter, and then to say, what about this, because I would like, this, there's a way to frame it. I help people write those kind of things, usually for themselves, never to be sent. But it changes their mindset, and they have that paradigm shift about how to communicate better, how to think better, and how to move better in a relationship. She said to me 2 weeks after that, it's the first time in 17 years that I felt like me. Because she was always trying to figure it out and hit her head against the wall and talk the way that she talks, because but this is how I communicate. Well, when you're talking to somebody, you've got to touch on the basis of how people learn. They either learn acoustically, they either learn by touch, and feeling, or they see it. So for me, I'm a chiropractor by first training. So I see, I touch, and then I hear. I'm not a good auditory learner, but I have taught myself how to be a better auditory learner and communicator just by listening to audiobooks. And thought, like, because I would listen to a chapter and then try to think, like, what did they just say? and then go back and do that. Because sometimes, technically, scientifically, when I'm reading stuff, I read a chapter sometimes 5, 7, 10 times, just so I make sure that I got the idea. Because if I have to repeat it, I want to repeat the correct thing. And I want to be able to take and frame that out for somebody who's an auditory learner, so they hear words for hearing. Like, listen to the sound of the ocean, or if they're feeling, just like, listen, I go, that sand feels so velvety, doesn't it? For that feeling. And then if you're like the visual parts, like, look at the crystal blue water in the Caribbean. It's so incredibly, you can see right through it. So you have 3 different styles that I just gave as examples of how to take communication and reframe it for people. so that they can hear what they need to hear and understand and move forward with that. So that's what I do with people to help them get past that. As I look at, it's not just one thing. It's like kind of this piece, like puzzle, and you're looking at the pieces and which one's missing, and then you're filling in that part that's missing so that people get it and they have that aha moment and they go like, wow, I never thought of that before. And then they can move forward and they can leave their old self behind, and then step into their future very happily.
Wow. And what I wanted to ask you, I see that Sheena is also commenting, and she said that your healthy habits can also prevent diseases.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, specifically chronic diseases?
Well, you have to understand why chronic diseases happen to begin with. The gut is, if you fix your gut, you change your life. So if you've got a chronic disease, you always got to go back and first look at the gut. So on my questionnaire that I have in my book, Why You're Sick, Fat, and Tired, I look at what's going on with the gut. That's the first important thing. But I look at how it is in relationship to the rest of it. So the gut only has one cell lining. And so when this lining gets damaged, it opens up, and then food goes through into the blood system a lot quicker or in the wrong place. And so when it gets that absorption problem, then it's got to go to the blood and it has to go over to the liver. And the liver's job is to get rid of it, is to detoxify, take what's good in it, and move it around the body. In Chinese medicine, that's what the liver does, is it spreads the energy, it spreads the qi. And so when it can't do that, what it does is it takes it from there and then it puts it into the intestinal tract. And from the intestinal tract, or if it's small enough molecule, it goes to the bladder ultimately to end up in the toilet, either way. So when it doesn't do that, it gets recycled, because if the gut's damaged, then what happens is those toxins go back out into the system again. And when the liver gets overwhelmed, it makes those toxins go, it puts them in blood, brain, bone, and fat. And so those are places that you don't want to have toxins. And like heavy metals go deep. That's easy for a heavy metal to go through the one layer lining of the gut. So how people end up with chronic illness or disease, it's not because they have a genetic predisposition, it's how they are responding to their environment. And so you have to understand how to test for, like the epigenetics of testing for where somebody's weak at. And if they're a candidate to do a detoxification, so they can tonify the liver to do its job better, but you've got to fix the gut first in order for that to happen. So when you can look where the weaknesses are, which your weakest link is your highest score, it's a higher priority, on my questionnaire, then what happens is you can take that and you can target it supplementation for that one organ system, depending upon what the rest of the pattern is. And then you can move forward from that being your starting point for your health journey. And then you can back it off, because it doesn't matter what your diagnosis is. What matters is what's going on in your environment, how you're responding to it, because you're not your DNA. You're how you are expressing your DNA into the environment. So if you do things that your parents did, like if your parents always had salty ham and brine or whatever is in, if you always eat the way that your parents did, then you can expect the same type of diseases that your parents, and even worse now, because 34 years ago, the quality of food was better than it is today. And so, and a lot of foods are being GMO grown. So you're having a lot of foods that are leached. So when you keep on giving somebody like, this is a piece of fish, well, that fish has a lot of mercury in it now. So how is your body handling the toxification? What about your cleaning supplies? What about your, gardening supplies that you have, that you use? Read labels, glyphosate, Monsanto, why they're still in business, I have no idea. But Monsanto's, product has been linked to, Hodgkin's disease and other cancers. Just like, when do we speak up as a public and say, no more? This is not okay. No more. I'm not an experiment. I'm not a guinea pig for you. No more.
Yeah.
Because we have, and that's what's got to happen. So when people say like, they have a chronic illness or disease, many of them are lifestyle induced. So if they're lifestyle induced, they can be reversed.
Okay. All right. I'm asking this question because I struggle with that sometimes. I suffer from epilepsy, and it wasn't something that happened to me as a child. I only got it when I was like between 18 and 19.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's difficult to do what you need to do in your career because it ties you down.
Well,
And sometimes out
it's-
2 weeks, and it really impacts, the belief in certain areas of my life. Like, how does one get past that?
well, first off, you've got to look at, my teachers when I studied, when you said epilepsy, I said, well, let's measure your skull, because you want to measure it from the center to the back on both sides. And so, and having somebody who does like cranial therapy might be a good choice because they do breathing techniques, like an upledger is a type of technique that help the skull move around, you know. And so
Okay.
when it's in an improper place, it can have certain patterns that exhibit. So when you have a certain level of stress, then, whether it be with food, because stress could be anything, right? It could be the air that you breathe, the water you drink, the gardening, chemicals that are around in your house. Things could set it off that you're not aware of, or
Yeah.
haven't taken a look at. So I don't know enough about your situation, but that when you said that's the first thing I can remember my, mentor teacher saying, like, epilepsy, you've got to measure the skull, and you've got to take a look at, like, what are those things that trigger that, and that trigger that. And you're thinking, like, what can I do with my diet so I can make my diet as pure as possible? And then and then I never tell anybody, if a medical doctor has put somebody on meds, I never tell anybody to go off those meds. That's a conversation at some point in time when you're in a good place, and not necessarily, like, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is. That's a conversation to have with your doctor. They can always call me, I'll talk to them. But, it's just like, it's like, so where are you at? Because you want to get the lifestyle solution, not only the solution, but the solution, SOUL,
Yes.
so
Mhm.
that, you can have that, inner and outer peace, so that you can move through life with less stress, or how you're reacting to that stress. That might be a trigger for triggering it off, but I don't know enough about you to really make a huge comment about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for the input. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
no, I would love to help you.
that. Me too.
Well, yes.
So
So
tell us a little bit more about, okay, you are talking a lot about what you are doing, and your book and the things that you are helping people to grow, even, and I know that that's the reason we connected because at the end we are in the same spirit, that we really want to help people to grow in their lives and in their business and in the things that are going through. So in your book and the things that you are doing now, what is the belief, or what is the thing that you are like planning? Okay, I want to go to this thing, I want to create this is my dream, for the future. What are the things that you are looking for?
well, first off, my long range goal is that I want to live to be 120. And my second range goal, my immediate goal, is I'm launching a product in a core online course called Be Stronger. And the
Mhm.
tagline is Then Medicine Masterclass. And what it does is it helps people go through this process of, like, what are the 5 pillars of health, which are proper nutrition and diet, proper exercise, proper sleep, positive mental and positive mindset, and then a properly functioning nervous system, which is really biomechanics and proper posture. And they all have things that are in common, and there's all basic things, so that teaches people to go back to that basics, and to get the cart in front of you with the horse in front of it, and you in the driver's seat with the right driver's license in order to move forward. So that's what that class gives you. It's going to be offered very shortly on on Evergreen, and also on my Amazon author page. You can find information, like the web, for like the webinar type thing too, that leads into it to give you information, and also on Eventbrite. It will be on Eventbrite also, as an ongoing educational course. So I'm doing that, and I'm teaching a course very shortly And because I love learning stuff, and I like helping people. And so that course is going to be like we were going to do it in January, but we had to move things back because of logistic issues. But I'm emceeing a online live workshop on the 26th of February. That's going to be based out of the West Coast. And the thing about that workshop is that I'm talking about the brains. I'm actually talking about how to set, for people to understand the brains. And then I have this really lovely guy who's going to teach people how to laugh, in different textures. It's really beautiful. And then I have a woman who's going to teach you about stress, who's for executives and people who are busy, moms and dads, like what can you do, to like back off and do stress. And then we're going to talk about some exercises that are supportive of that. And I have a special guest for the last part of it at this point in time, as long as nobody changes the agenda. and as I have a great artist who's going to teach you, and you get to go with the workbook that we designed for this course, so that you can draw your own stress-free picture. So anytime you look at it, it'll be like an NLP thing where you automatically relax. And then we're going to have like a little talk part in that. So we're doing that very shortly, and putting the pieces of the puzzle together for that. So if you want to know about those kind of things, you can reach out to me, either, from my webpage. There's a contact on the last tab that says how to contact. You can contact me through that way and just say that we were here from here today, and you want to know about those two things. And then I mentor and coach. People either coach or they mentor, but I do both, because I can't tell you, how to, coaches to me don't always do stuff. It's just like somebody asked me one time, what did your coach do for you? And I said, nothing. And then I realized I'm much more of a mentor because I like to lead by example. And sometimes even when I'm working with somebody, I will do what they're doing just so they have somebody to do it with. So if they're going to do a 10-day detox program that I do the 10-day detox program, because I'll do that anyway 4 or 5 times a year, because I want to make sure my liver's doing what it's supposed to do. And I want to make sure my gut's doing what it's supposed to do. So I will do it with them, and then we'll talk about well, how can I do that better? Like what are 5 things that you can do based upon what we talked about today? So I mix the mentoring and coaching together. I don't know anybody else who does that. They either say you've got to do one or the other. And remember, if you recall from being a child, I'm a nonconformist. So, that's how I move forward with that. But I love working with people on that level because there's so much information. You cannot get enough information about health in 1 month. Just like it takes you years to get to where you're at, or even you don't even know where you're at. Because, when I used to walk around in Boston, I used to see people, I would think, oh my God, that person's so sick. They're yellow, they're gray, they're look so unhappy. And I would ask them, too. And I'm still here today to talk about, so people actually answered me. And so I like, having that go. And I also, an article that meant so much to me, that was the thing, because I retired for a while. And when I came back into working again and starting going to coaching, and then how this is all just kind of led me down this path of where I'm at right now. As I read this article, there was 212 known dangerous chemicals that are found consistently in the blood of Americans. Dangerous chemicals. And those, if you look up chemicals that are on this list, they don't do anything good for you. It's just like even heavy metals, like mercury, you can see it in children's x-rays sometimes, or lead. I mean, you can see the lead lines like in the leg bone. If kids have got lead poisoning, sometimes that's how they use that. They take an x-ray to diagnose that. And so, it's just like we have these, things in our environment, and it irritated me so much that I'm going to go back to work. I just don't know what I'm going to do, and because I didn't want to be in an office, and do chiropractic. But, anyone needs a shoulder fix, I'm your girl. And I do shoulders very, very well. But I like the idea of saying hey, here's where you're at. Tell me your possibility, and let's make a roadmap of how to get there. And it's just it's not necessarily going to be, kids heal up faster. The gut heals faster. Is an organ that's pretty easy to fix. So it's just you got to have the pieces of the puzzle of what's going on. I've got to have something to work with, but if I have something to work with, then you can make great strides in a very short period of time.
Mm, great. CJ, do you have any comments, questions?
Yeah, Dr. Pat, I'm just curious. You talk about the pillars, and I know the intrinsic links between, moving your body, getting exercise, good nutrition, and mental health. I'm wondering if you could speak specifically to the importance of gut health to mental health and things like, bipolar, anxiety, depression, things that, especially in the last 2 years, these things are leading people to
Yeah.
suicide. And the rate here in Canada has gone up astronomically. So I'm just curious if you could speak to that, the importance of gut health and how that relates to mental wellness.
I would love to. First off, a lot of things that they're actually tracking in the last 2 years. To me, I find interesting because those problems were there before COVID, and
Right.
what they knew before COVID, and before we had this pandemic, was that people, had that their gut brain connection is huge. So what you eat affects what you think. And if you eat and you're upset, you're not going to digest your food. So it's really important to eat as clean as possible, so that you can think better and easier. And you can get, like, so many people don't read labels. Like when you read a label and they're going, well, I didn't know sorbitol was a sugar. Well, anything that has an OL at the end is a sugar. A lot of people don't know, and they keep on changing ingredient names, like aspartame. I don't know what it's called right now, but they changed the name of aspartame, I think 3 times so far, because they went to NutraSweet, right? And that aspartame is like, when I read research papers on that. So you're taking something, or you're trying to lose weight, and you're using, like artificial sugars. Don't use those. Your body doesn't know what they are. They'll make you gain weight. It actually stops the ability to lose weight. And so having those, like eating the right foods, is really important. So here's the other thing. A lot of people are, stuck at home and they're working from home, right? And
Mhm.
so I wrote an article that's in LinkedIn, in my article section, about working from home and how corporations are missing the boat about how to handle the problem that people are having with their mental wellness at home. The first thing is that in 2004 or 9, or yeah, 2004 or 9, IBM brought everybody home from work, 40% of their workforce, because they wanted to save money. And so what they found out is that by 2019, they were putting those same people back into the office because they were more productive. They couldn't replace the experience that happened at the water cooler when you're brainstorming with your partner, or with your colleagues. They couldn't do that. And so most of these people don't have a social life. That is their social life when they go to work. So you
Right.
take social life out of the picture, people will automatically get depressed, because we're social beings. We're supposed to talk to each other. We're supposed to touch each other. We're supposed to hug. And so, when you take that out of the component, and like going out for a beer with your buddies after, or the whole group. I ran into the whole, when I was in London one time, I ran into the whole TV cast for MTV, right? Is that, if I say that right? And so that was so much fun. But like everyone, like, got together, they let their hair down, and so it's just like that ability. And getting on a Zoom call does not cut it.
Right.
It's just like you have to, like, like
Interesting.
you go out. It's like when I work too much, I've got to go out and actually talk to people, and then lo and behold, all they have to do is ask me one question about health, and their life will change. But but the point is that, it's just like when you look about that problem, corporations are buying people TVs, bigger screens. They don't need bigger screens.
Yeah.
They need to be hugged. They need to be told somebody loves them. They need to trust the team that they're on, and they don't trust their team anymore because you don't know what's going on behind. It's like the imagination. Somebody says something that is like, and you're listening to it, and it's like festering in the back of your mind. You're waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're thinking that one thought, and you're going like, I don't like working in this situation anymore. I don't like the people who I'm working with because I don't trust them. And so that's a huge problem in working from home, and it's just like, I don't need another massage. I need to have social interaction. I need to be with people who I can brainstorm with. So we're all moving together forward. I need to know that somebody has my back no matter what. And that's what's not happening. And for people who are working from home, and then they have places in home, like some people, like if you're in New York City, you have this tiny 200 square foot apartment that all of a sudden you're locked in and you can't go out. So how many times can you move your computer around to make a different scene or to make your space in a 200 square foot unit, right? It's just like, and then people have the problems. They have kids and they can't get away from their kids, you know, and they can't. And so, and like taking kids out of the equation when you're all locked down is a big problem for business, because I've had people that had kids swinging behind them, you know, or their girlfriend or their wife having an argument with them, walking in and starting to argue with them in the middle of a meeting, you know, whatever room that they were in. And I'm thinking, this is totally screwed up. So the first way that anybody can get out of that mess is they have to take a look at what their baseline health is. They have to take a look at what is it that I can eat so that I can feel better, I can think better, and I can move better. And it starts with what you put in your mouth, and you have control of what you put in your mouth. You know, so if you, and like, but you've got to have the mindset in order for that to happen. You know, and you have to like, you know, like what can I do? You know, it's like you can't have happy hour on Zoom every day because everyone will get sloshed, you know. And so, but when you ask about that mental wellness problem, it's a huge problem. Suicide, you know, is huge anyway, no matter where you're at. And there's people who are always going to like use that as their venue to get out because they aren't given other choices. No one's listening to them when the cry for help comes, because it comes way before they take their life. And so, you know, and you start by looking at that. You look at the first pillar of health, and that's where that starts. And you look at the mindset, and you couple those things together, and you get them to move, and you can change someone's life. You know, and you got to take off the stigmatism, right? Because everyone's scared. So if you keep people in chaos, and if you keep people scared, nobody moves forward. They have paralyzed will, and they don't walk forward. They stuck. And my job is to get them unstuck. You know, and get that thought process moving. Retie the right brain to the left brain and move forward. You know, and I walk with you. I never leave anybody. I don't leave anybody behind me.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Pat.
We are at the end of the program, Dr. Pat. It was incredible. I know that we could be talking another hour here, so this was amazing.
Definitely.
Do you want to say like a last thing that you want to share with our audience here today? To say
sure. You know, there's something that I learned, you know, a long time ago. And this is how I always did my life. Because somebody's like, you know, like, how many patients do you see in your office when you had your office? And I never really, only did that on Mondays, but I left it and walked away, and I revisit it every Monday. But what I learned is that life goes a lot better for anybody when you give for the sake of giving, you love for the sake of loving, and you serve for the sake of serving. So what I do is I invite anybody who's listening and they want to explore this, you know, I have a short questionnaire that I can send out on a link that you would tie back into me, and I can help you put the pieces of the puzzle together. And then you can decide what you need to do and where you need to go to get, you know, so you can have what you deserve to have. You know, it's just like in where you're at. So there's always something that you can do. And I just want to let you know, I have, you know, I always want to just tell you one thing about what you should do about those 5 pillars of health. So you ready?
Yeah.
Drink water. And if you don't like the taste of water, put lemon in it. And how much water? Good for you, CJ. And if you don't like water, put lemon in it so that it's a little bit cloudy, because it will raise your right type of acid in your stomach, so you'll digest your foods better. You know, it'll also make you pee a little bit more. You know, but it's good for you. And how you know how much water you basically need is your weight divided by half in ounces. So if you're 100 pounds, you would have to drink 50 ounces of water a day, because hydration is important for everything. It's important for thinking. It's important for detoxing the brain. It's important for your gut, for you to digest your food, and to lubricate your joints. It's so important for everything. But you have high quality water. Don't drink it from the tap because it has neurotoxins in it. So I'd like to leave you on that, and I'm sure that there's show notes that we're going to put up of how people can connect with me if they want to have a bigger conversation. And because I just think about your perfect day. Write it down. Tell me what it is, and we'll get it for you.
Awesome.
I love it.
Thank
So
you.
thank you very much, Dr. Pat. It was
Namaste, you
amazing.
guys.
We really enjoy every second here today and all your stories. You're a storyteller also. That's amazing. So
Well,
this is
I love doing. I mean, I have a little bit of passion for this. a little,
no, I know.
A little bit.
of passion, but I love helping people, and nothing gives me more pleasure than to see people go out and do good, have fun, and thrive.
Awesome. No, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, this show can be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out the http spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, let's go.